M. Devenport Productions and Chris Nunley Productions present The Night Shifters by Emily Devenport. Read for you by the author. Copyright M. Devenport Productions, 2011. Prologue from the World of Day. One evening, when I was 9 years old, Mom and I sat in lawn chairs under our fairy tree and sipped root beer floats. We gazed up at the lights we had taken 2 days to string in the tree. They shone like 1,000 stars, making up for the real stars that got burned away by the lights of town. Music played softly from the radio in the living room, drifting out the back door like a gentle wind through a whole forest of fairy trees. I must say, Mom stirred her ice cream as it melted into the root beer. "This is perfect." "The best thing ever," I agreed. That moment was so perfect, I think it will last until the end of time, long after suns have burned to cinders and the clockwork of the universe winds down. Mom had that kind of power. She could take simple things and turn them into time-twisting, gravity-defying marvels. Or that's how it seemed as we sipped those root beer floats under that tree. The lights really did look like stars, so full of promise that anything seemed possible. I thought I would remember everything about that evening for the rest of my life and beyond. But there was one thing I didn't recall until 17 years later. I remembered it when I was lying in bed, just as I was about to drift off to sleep. I remembered that Mom took a long drink of her root beer float and then looked at me with an expression that should have been wistful under the circumstances. But it wasn't. She looked totally serious. "Hazel," she said, "promise me you won't give up on your dreams." "I won't," I promised. I assumed she meant that I should try to be whatever I wanted to be in life, a doctor or a lawyer or a mermaid or whatever. Now I wonder if I completely misunderstood her. Chapter 1. My Crystal Heart. "Don't give up on your dreams," Mom advised. I promised I wouldn't. I really meant to keep the promise, but I thought I had broken it, or maybe just failed to fully realize it, because I had not become a doctor, or a lawyer, or a mermaid, or anything much, really. But on that fateful night, 17 years later, I remembered that conversation when I went to bed. I had labored through a particularly hard day at work, and I wasn't feeling very happy about my life. I always felt grateful to fall asleep, but on that night something occurred to my almost sleeping mind. In one way, I had kept my promise. I was a grand champion dreamer. When I was asleep, I dreamed a dazzling universe full of heroes and monsters, princesses and goddesses, cities and temples and gardens that made the most wonderful places on earth seem dull in comparison. Not that I had actually been to the most wonderful places on earth, though I saw them on TV sometimes. Yet I never had much desire to see them in person. Why should I when whole new worlds awaited me every time I shut my eyes? During the day, I did what I had to do to pay the bills. At night, I ate supper, watched TV, read books. At bedtime, I turned in, confident that I would dream and that the sun would come up in the morning and the whole thing would start over again. So on the evening of that last day, as my memory of Mom advised me never to give up on my dreams, I embraced the night wholeheartedly and drifted into the universe of my imagination. I dreamed, but for the first time in my life I didn't remember what I dreamed. Perhaps I never will. But I'll never forget what happened when the alarm went off. I opened my eyes to darkness. Crap, I thought. I grabbed the noisy clock from my bedside table, switched off the alarm, and glared at its glowing face. It read 6:30 a.m. The sun should be up by 6:30. Did I let the year get away from me again? But it couldn't have gotten that far away from me. The sun should rise any minute if it was really 6:30 a.m. I got out of bed, stood by the window in my PJs, and waited for that familiar glow over the horizon, a glow that, confidentially, I wasn't particularly fond of. But the sun did not rise. This filled me with both anxiety and joy. I was accustomed to having day at least once every 24 hours. That's my excuse for being anxious. But if the sun didn't come up, there would be no reason to go to work, hence the joy. My clock alarm went off again, making me jump. I've always hated it, so I usually wake up just before that obnoxious noise can ruin my whole day. I thought I had switched it off the first time, but the button was still in the on position.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?